Mario Lemieux changed everything for Pittsburgh. But what if the Penguins never drafted him in 1984? Let's talk about it.
Penguins! It's Crosby. Crosby on Kunitz and shot. Penguins win it! Sees part for Crosby to the goal. He scores!
Buckle up, baby. Are you kidding me?
And on Fane, the shot. He scores! Here's Crosby with a burst of speed up the middle. Gets open. Scores!
You're a collective.
Andy Kyoto is beating Ninamaki's brains in. What a show!
Welcome to the What If series here at the Penguins Collective Podcast. And today it's all about what if Mario Lemieux was never drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, that is a crazy thought to have, especially in 2025, because Mario Lemieux has done so much for the Penguins organization. You can't talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins without Mario Lemieux. For crying out loud, there is a statue honoring him in front of where the Penguins call home at PPG Paints Arena. You cannot have that discussion of the Stanley Cups 91, 92, almost 93 without Mario Lemieux. Even in 2009, he had a heavy part to juice the boys up to go out there and win the Stanley Cup. 16 and 17, heavily involved as well. You cannot talk about the success of the Pittsburgh Penguins without Mario Lemieux. So today is probably the biggest, most impactful what if for the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's all about the savior of the franchise, but it all came down to one move with the general manager and the very rumored tank for the number 1 overall pick. The Pittsburgh Penguins, going into the 1984 draft, had the number 1 pick. Josh, how important was this draft? How important was the rumor behind the Penguins tanking, kind of being the first team in NHL to truly tank for the first pick? And tell us a little bit about the prize waiting at the end of the tunnel, which was Mario Lemieux, and how good was he really in the QJMHL? I messed it up. Which one is it?
No, you got it right the first time.
The QMJHL and the success he had in the juniors there. Josh, take it away.
Yeah, so there is hyperbole and fact and stories of Mario Lemieux when he was on the come up at the age of 14, at the age of 15, at the age of 16, of this kid, this phenom that is coming up through the rankings, and how important he will be to whatever franchise drafts him at the NHL level, because everyone knew that his game will translate, and the ridiculous production that he was putting up as a teenager was only going to continue once he reached the NHL level. So it was very evident, even though a lot of Penguins players, fans, and members of the organization will deny it, that they were actively tanking. There was outrage from other teams' fans and media claiming that they were tanking on purpose in order to line themselves up in the 1984 draft to get Mario Lemieux first overall. They ended that 83-84 season with only 38 points. Now, granted, point system was a little bit different. Season was a little bit different. But nonetheless...
And not only that, I'm going to interrupt real quick. Not only was it different, the draft was different. What we see today, there's math involved to see who gets the number 1 overall pick. Okay? There's math. You take certain numbers. It's no longer like a lottery, like a ping pong ball. Just pull out. Oh, it's the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's not even how it worked. It's literally like the National Football League and how we see drafts today. Bad team equals number one pick. The worst team gets the number one pick. So there's no physical tanking anymore. We couldn't see that today for a guy like McKenna coming up next year's draft. You're not going to see a team tank because you're not guaranteed the number one overall pick. Back then, you just had to be the worst team. And in fact, I think there was a couple, like a month left to go in the season, and they were just saying, you know what? I think this is the route we're going to go in. Let's just go all in. Once again, no one has confirmed nor denied that the Pittsburgh Penguins tanked, but little cheeky with it. In any documentary you watch about the Penguins, you know that they'll always go, yeah, somehow we came up with the first overall pick. So Josh, you can keep on going.
Yeah, no, I think that was perfectly explained exactly how the draft process worked in the NHL in 1984. But just in his final junior season that Louie mentioned up in QMJHL, he played 70 games. And in those 70 games, he had 133 goals, which is
crazy.
So good. Okay, that's practically 2 goals a game. Okay, quick math there. Okay, that's almost 2 goals a game. But I think the most wild stat of that is that not only did he have 133 goals, he had 282 points overall. So that meant he averaged 4 points a game in his final junior season of the QMJHL. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't think we'll ever see those numbers again in any league.
I don't think that's possible. I don't think you could.
Unreal. So he was absolutely ridiculous. And with that, I mean, there was no chance that the Penguins were going to try and, miss out on this type of opportunity. But there were questions, okay? The team was struggling at the time. Their attendance was bad. You only got 38 points in the season before. No one wants to go see that, okay? That's a bad team. So it is what it is. But, I mean, at the same time, because they were tanking, they still kind of had a decent team for Lemieux to come into if he was going to be selected by them first overall, because there was a little bit of a tanking there with them. But there was, at the time, because everyone wanted Lemieux, legitimate trade offers for the first overall pick. There were many teams that put in offers that wanted to move on up. The Devils were rumored to have, they weren't rumored. They did have the second overall pick, but they were rumored to be prepared to draft Lemieux because they were hoping that the Penguins will flub this first pick and just completely avoid Gretzky. Completely avoid
our
Lemieux.
Gretzky, yeah,
our
100%.
Gretzky, the true Gretzky. But
right.
the only team that is rumored to have made a legitimate offer for the first overall pick,
right,
was a team at the time called the Quebec Nordiques, and their trade offer was to swap picks, but as well as giving them the, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Stastny brothers.
Yeah.
Yep. So they had these brothers, the Stastny brothers, on their team to give them, among other things, including their first round pick, to the Penguins. And the rumor that I'm reading here says that it was considered. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, if someone is averaging 4 points a game in juniors, no trade is being considered. No trade.
Yeah.
You are sticking and picking, essentially. But it is unreal, the fact that they even considered that possibility. Now, there were other teams as well rumored. The Kings wanted to make a splash, try to get that star that they so desperately needed in Los Angeles. So they were hoping that they'd be able to make a trade. Didn't work, obviously. they went on. They got the second prize in Gretzky down the line, but at the time they were desperate for a star and wanted to get Lemieux. But that's how it kind of unfolded. I'm sorry, but the Penguins they stayed put and they decided to go with their guy, the future of the team, the future of the franchise, in Mario Lemieux.
And the person responsible for that is someone that the Penguins just honored in their Hall of Fame, Eddie Johnston. He was the general manager at the time, and he knew the future for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We owe a lot to Eddie Johnston because he said what Josh just said. This guy is the prize of a century. We need to make sure we capture him. There was a lot of teams. We just said the New Jersey Devils, the Quebec Nordiques. I think there was some other teams among that list that were interested. Like Josh said, the LA Kings. There were some other teams as well. The ownership of the Pittsburgh Penguins were putting pressure on Eddie Johnston at the time to make the deal. So they really wanted to make the deal so that way the Penguins could get a little more action now, because they weren't sure how Mario Lemieux was going to produce. They knew he was going to produce, but once again, you're trying to sell tickets. Once again, the team was struggling. So they were thinking, wow, we were going to get a haul for whoever we trade this number one pick in. That's going to help the Penguins. It's going to help with season tickets. That's what's going to help get people in the arena. But Eddie Johnston knew better. He said, no, what you need is a guy that the team could rally behind. And he stuck to his guns, like Josh said, and got Mario Lemieux.
Now, the big question, what if that never happened? What if the Penguins did accept one of those trades? What if the Penguins did just overlook Lemieux and draft someone like Eddie Olczyk in the 84 draft as opposed to Mario Lemieux? So the big fallout of that decision is the decision that ultimately appointed Lemieux savior of the franchise. And is that the Penguins, already being in financial despair at the time of the 1984 draft, could have very possibly been filing for bankruptcy and being relocated in 1989, which was already a legitimate possibility with Lemieux on the team. So the fact that he wasn't in this situation, is not on the team, it could have been earlier than 89. Could have been as soon as 85, just the year after. So it was imperative that the Penguins did draft him, and thankfully so. But going down this scenario of what if they didn't, and we're just going to use this situation, Ed Olczyk as their quote unquote superstar to build around. They very much do have to look at relocation. And that is a tough conversation to have, because the cities, I should say, that were being considered for relocation possibilities in the late 80s and early 90s were cities, Seattle, which present day finally got one, Portland, Kansas City, Milwaukee, and then another Canada team in Hamilton. So who knows what could have happened? I don't like any of those. Yeah. I mean, then, if the Penguins were to be relocated, like, do the fans of the Penguins follow them? Because there's no, team that's going to be following suit in Pittsburgh in the near future. So what do you do? Who do you root for? Do you go to the bitter rival Flyers across the state? That would have been absolutely devastating for the city of Pittsburgh if they had to make that call.
Yeah, I think the whole thing was, I think this is the biggest ripple effect. Obviously, the financial burdens of the Pittsburgh Penguins that's why there was so much emphasis on getting players now, so that way we can make sure there are people in the seats. Because if we didn't get money in that arena, whether we had Mario Lemieux or not, this team was struggling financially. Luckily, success came pretty quickly with Mario Lemieux, so that, and the buzz around that obviously got people in the stands. But if we got the Stastny brothers, if we had Eddie Olczyk, that's like 5 years tops 5-6 years that, there's some success in the team and there's some buzz. So even if we don't get bankrupt in 89, like what actually happened, it could have happened right after that. We don't know. The Penguins have always been a team that is struggling because hockey's not the biggest sport here in Pittsburgh. It's football and baseball. Hockey is just a blessing because I don't know. It's like lightning in a bottle here in Pittsburgh. But honestly, this wasn't a place for a NHL franchise. We talked about it in our last What If. The NHL was very concerned about Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
People were leaving. The steel industry was kind of wrapping up, and people were kind of moving on and exploring other options. And the NHL was like, I don't know how long this franchise will last. They put a gamble on the Penguins, and if it wasn't for Mario Lemieux, I think they would have lost that gamble.
Yeah, and not to mention the NHL landscape would have been completely different as well. We talked about some of the teams that could have made a pull for Lemieux. If we did go with Ed Olczyk with the first overall pick, and New Jersey was to land with him, you have guys like a young Bill Guerin who's there with Mario. That could be a team that can make some noise in the late 80s. But also talking about longevity, if the cards still remain the same, they end up with Brodeur. So now you have Lemieux and Brodeur. That's just
that alone is unstoppable.
It's gross. I don't even like thinking about that. And then the worst case scenario, if you ask me, is if they accepted a trade for the Kings. The Kings made a trade offer for the Penguins. If they accepted that, the Kings would have had Mario Lemieux. And then later in that decade, when Gretzky became a free agent and decided to take his talents to Los Angeles, if that still remained the same, you would have Lemieux and Gretzky on the same team, possibly the greatest 1-2 punch ever.
Yeah.
Ever. That would be absolutely.
That would be nuts.
That would be nuts.
100% nuts.
I don't like it. I don't like it. But it's something to actually consider. And then lastly, we talked about the Quebec Nordiques. If they were to make that trade offer, get accepted, take Mario Lemieux at the first overall, we can still quite possibly have the Quebec Nordiques in the league today.
That's right.
They may not had to have, be relocated and go through all that process of everything that they had to deal with. So it not only did it change just for Pittsburgh, it changed for the whole league.
Yeah, you're right about the landscape because you're thinking of one team that came out of Quebec, which is the Colorado Avalanche.
Correct.
That team would not have had success, maybe Joe Sakic. Well, Joe Sakic was a part of the Quebec Nordiques. But my point is, you had Mario Lemieux. If he went to the Quebec Nordiques, they win Stanley Cups. Well, guess what? Now Canada is kind of getting more excited with some Stanley Cups. You have Joe Sakic that still comes in. And look at the history of that. Look at what a franchise that would have been. All they needed was Mario Lemieux as a buffer until they got Joe Sakic. Like that would have been absolutely wild for the Quebec Nordiques. That team would have definitely would have been here. They would have won more Stanley Cups. And that whole history, or Josh, as you said, trajectory, that landscape changes everything, because then Colorado Avalanche would have never became a thing because you had the success of the Quebec Nordiques. Yeah,
and that's where it changes the league as we know it today, just in terms of the teams as opposed to just the players and the outcomes. But I think just lastly, the thing you have to look at is modern day Penguins. What do we look like today? We don't have 91, 92 Stanley Cups. Like you mentioned in the intro, we may not have 09, may not have 16, 17. We may not have Crosby. We may not have Yager. who knows? The fallout of that is not only immediate in 1984, it's still decades later to present day.
Yeah, and obviously you can't overlook the biggest issue of financial issues. We got to talk about the biggest financial issue that came up while Lemieux was playing for us and decided, I don't need a salary. How about I just buy the team?
Yeah.
And I'll pay for everyone's salary. And I will make sure that there's a team in Pittsburgh while I'm here. If that never happened, Penguins, we could even have a whole a conversation like, wonder if Mario Lemieux just wanted to be a player. Didn't have that business mindset. He could have just went to another team, and the Penguins would have been no more. We still would have had him, still would have had the success of 91, 92, but then when the financial troubles came along and somebody had to buy it out, Lemieux could have said, I'll just go play somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'll just go do something else.
I'll move on too. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes, no, I love Pittsburgh, and I need to have the Penguins here. I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to make sure everyone's covered. That is a direct link to him getting drafted in 84. He said he immediately fell in love with the city of Pittsburgh, which is why he bought the team later in life to make sure the Penguins stay in Pittsburgh. That is the biggest what if. If Lemieux could have got drafted. Yeah, he could have played for the Penguins for a while and then left. But he said, no, I want to make sure this is happening. And if we never drafted Mario Lemieux, guess what? He would have not loved Pittsburgh and would have not bought the team when we had the financial issues. And there would not be a statue of Mario Lemieux anywhere, most likely. No, I doubt that, because if he played in Quebec, he would be the savior of Quebec too. So we don't know if he did the same thing. And honestly, it's a fun looking back at that, because you got to understand it was either the Quebec Nordiques or Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't think I've ever realized that until now, while we're going through all our history and stuff like that and the way everything planned out, because it sounded like Quebec, if they got Mario Lemieux, they would have succeeded and we would have fell. And it looks like we got Mario and they fell. So it was literally the battle to get Mario Lemieux for the fight to survive. And the Penguins lucked out. And we have all this success now with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang getting 3 Stanley Cups and maybe more to come.
Yeah, and the last thing I just want to mention about the Quebec Nordiques, I don't want to say that they wouldn't have been a team, because obviously they are still a team. They were just a Colorado Avalanche, coming from a fan of a different sports league that tries to honor the past of a different team name. I can understand if there's any Colorado Avalanche fans listening saying, "Oh, well, we still own the history of the Nordiques. We're still the same team."
But,
it's like, yes,
isn't it different?
But you're
owners?
not in Quebec. I don't know about the ownership between the
Quebec to Colorado.
From Quebec, I don't know if they changed ownership.
Yeah, I think
but
it
that's
was.
But that's where you have I just want to be careful with the language saying they relocated.
Okay.
That Colorado is not a new team. The Quebec Nordiques relocated to Denver, making them because Denver still owns the rights and history to Quebec. It's not like it died. It's not like it just died out there in Quebec.
How do you feel since you're a Tennessee Titans fan? For those of you who don't know,
that's the reference I was making.
Tennessee Titans, same ownership group, moved from Houston to Tennessee. So they were the Houston Oilers. Then for one season, the
Tennessee Oilers. Yep.
The Tennessee Oilers. Then it was the Tennessee Titans. Kevin, Dyson, a yard short.
Yeah.
They've never been the same ever since. Just want to throw that in there for you, Josh. But that was the same ownership. I feel like with the Quebec Nordiques and the Colorado Avalanche, I think it was a new owner who bought the team and relocated. So I think that's what happened. But
they're still the same. That's why I just wanted to preface it.
Which I wanted to set up the context, because there is a difference. But not only that there is a difference, how do you feel? So a lot of hockey podcasts will talk about this. They say that Quebec Nordiques, when the Colorado Avalanche, when they wear their Quebec Nordiques throwbacks, it's like stolen valor.
No,
You
it's
don't think
honoring
so?
the past. No, it's honoring the past. That's what it is.
Interesting.
Now,
I feel like
if there is a team
right.
that becomes, if there is a new expansion team in Quebec and they decide to wear the Quebec Nordique jerseys, that's stolen valor. Because that, even though you are now in Quebec, you are not the Nordiques. You're not. They wouldn't be named the Nordiques, but they try to use their jerseys. That's stolen valor because that belongs to the Colorado Avalanche. Similarly, the Houston Texans cannot wear the Houston Oilers jerseys and will not wear the Houston Oilers jerseys. That's why the NFL fans get angry at the Titans for wearing it, because they feel the same way that it should go to Houston. But that's not how teams work.
Right.
The city does not own the team. An individual or a group of people own the team.
So let's keep it with hockey. Utah came from a failing Arizona Coyotes. Okay. So it was Phoenix, then Arizona, and now Utah is that. They have come out and said, we're doing our own thing now with the new ownership, because he said there's going to be hockey in Arizona again someday. And he said that's not for us to touch. So if they want it back, they can have the history too.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I could have swore I read an article about the new owner. It's his decision.
Cool dude. Yeah, he's a cool dude, Utah Mammoth owner.
Would you be okay with that? A new league, a new team coming in to Arizona and say, we're the Arizona Coyotes. Would you be okay with that? Is that not stolen valor then?
Only if the Utah Mammoth owner releases
permission. Okay.
No, not just gives them permission, releases the history to them. Like, he has to legitimately say the Utah Mammoth established 2024 or 2023, whatever.
Yeah,
because they were the Utah Hockey Club or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Stupid thing.
Yeah, but that's also where I have issues with some of these teams. I don't know if Denver does it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Utah will start doing it when they say established whatever year that they actually were established. But it's like, you weren't. You were the Arizona Coyotes before.
Right.
You were established back then. Like, you can't
but wasn't
recreate
Arizona
history.
Winnipeg?
See, this is where NHL gets hairy. Because
now Winnipeg is back.
But they may have been. But you also have to kind of look at the past and try to understand why they left. Because some of these teams literally just dissolved. And then a new owner just put them in, a different area. So it's hard. That's why I like just Nordiques and the Avalanche, because they are the most similar to the Titans and Oilers.
Sure.
So sure. That's why I keep that way. And that's why it was awesome that we got to talk about it in this episode as well.
And that's how crazy the landscape would change. It's already crazy now.
It's true.
Right now, currently, it's so hairy. Now, please don't fact check us on what we talked about with Utah, because I honestly, as I was talking, I was like, is that true? Did I read that? Or was it like a TikTok post that I believed? Because you know what? Nowadays, you kind of mix
those are
the
more
two.
and more common.
Yeah, where I'm like, I got my information from like an Instagram post, which could be 100% incorrect. So I'm not dying on that hill. If you say it's wrong, okay, I believe you. I'm sorry. All I'm saying is the landscape is completely changed. Even, listen, the way we just talked could have been completely different if Mario Lemieux went to another team or just didn't buy the Penguins, because what if he went to, I don't know, pick a team that's no longer around, Arizona. He could have went there
Yeah.
to Phoenix. He could have went to Phoenix, for crying out loud. And the Phoenix Coyotes would probably still be the Phoenix Coyotes and not Arizona. And they would be successful there and no one would bat an eye. And that's great. You know, and
I mean, even, and that's the thing, like even crazier situations, like if you think about it, you know, he played in the early 2000s, you know, granted sparingly due to injury and all the health reasons
and the cancer.
But like, what if he decided to play for like the Atlanta Thrashers, you know,
or
like
Josh,
became a free agent?
Can I get,
like,
can I
are they
still
in the
Can I
league?
throw another one? What if he went for Hartford?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whenever
Do they move to
Whalers
Carolina?
would still be here.
Yeah.
If he won,
Technically
and
they are
had
with the Hurricanes. But yeah.
No, I know, but I'm saying like with the success of Mario Lemieux on the Hartford Whalers, they wouldn't have no interest of leaving Hartford because of all the history that they would make. Now, granted, they had one of the best hockey players of all time, but I'm just saying, you know, still, if they had Mario Lemieux and the success that the Penguins had with Mario Lemieux, does a franchise even move? I don't think so. I think that's where the landscape is completely different. And that's just goes to show how good of a hockey player Mario Lemieux was. Okay? Mario Lemieux was so good. People were probably going to kill each other over Mario Lemieux. And that's kind of, if you watch a documentary about the Pittsburgh Penguins, that's kind of the vibe you get. Like, we had to make sure we got Mario Lemieux. Otherwise, none of this would matter. None of this would matter. And I think it's so important because Lemieux is such a important figure in the league and such an important figure in the franchise that it has to make sense that we get Mario Lemieux. He buys the team. He makes sure Sidney Crosby is set up for success by but by having him live with him for a year.
Yep.
I think it was more than a year. He literally lived. Take this 18-year-old and say, you know what? Hey, man, there's going to be a lot of pressure. I want to make sure you're okay. Sets him up for a 2008 Stanley Cup visit. Stanley Cup champion in 09, 16, 17. Could have went 18. Could have went 18. It wasn't for stupid Matt Murray against whoever. Kuznetsov. I don't know who scored on him in overtime that knocked us out of the second round against the Capitals. All I'm saying is we could have went to multiple Stanley Cups, and all of it had to do with how in what an intrinsic part of the franchise Mario Lemieux was. Everything hinged on Eddie Johnson saying Mario Lemieux on that day, on that draft day. If he didn't say that name, we wouldn't even have a stupid podcast about it because we wouldn't even be Penguins fans. The ripple effect is real. This is the most important what if. The Pittsburgh Penguins need Mario Lemieux, and I dare to say the Pittsburgh Penguins are Mario Lemieux. If it wasn't for Mario Lemieux, this league, this team would be completely different. Now, my hope and future for the Pittsburgh Penguins, this is just a side note, Josh. We didn't even talk about this. My hope and my prayers is that when Sidney Crosby retires, he buys the team back from Fenway. And that way, it's just like, oh, Mario Lemieux bought the team when it was most needed, and now Sidney Crosby will buy the team when it's most needed. And oh my gosh, look how the parallels of the greatest hockey player then grows up to be the better hockey player. And Pittsburgh Penguins, we're so blessed. We had Mario Lemieux.
I got one better for you. They buy it together. They buy it together.
I would love that, Josh. That would make me cry if Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby come together and go, guys, we're going to buy the team. I would say you start building a statue of the both of them just on top of the arena. Okay? Shaking hands. I don't care what it is. Or the back-to-back photo. I know they did that with Jágr and Lemieux, but they did that at draft night, I think they did. Mario Lemieux. Oh, no, he, was hugging him or something.
Didn't they?
It was like a stepbrothers situation. Yes, yeah, you're right. You're right. They did like a stepbrothers photo. You built a statue of that. You built a statue of that on top of the arena, and I want the biggest statue, like Christ the Redeemer, big statue. I want that, okay? Josh, I want that overlooking Mount Washington in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Overlooking the whole city is Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby. Josh, I'm serious. That needs to be a statue now. Or, even better, just like a Mount Rushmore of like Pittsburgh heroes, and it's just Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby's face forever in Mount Washington.
I like the Christ the Redeemer idea on Mount
just
Washington. I like that.
Overlooking, Brazil. This is going to be Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby overlooking the creation of Pittsburgh, because it's not going to be Pittsburgh without Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby.
It's true.
Yeah, people are like, oh, what about the Steelers and the Pirates? They have ill compared to Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby's impact. You think TJ Watt, whatever the Watt is, has the same impact as Sidney Crosby? No. Maybe Roberto Clemente.
That's. I was going to say. I don't even think there's a single Steeler that you can name that's close to it.
No. Yeah, I agree. There's not one Steeler, but Roberto Clemente, he's up there.
He's probably closest.
Mount
He's probably
Rushmore,
closest
Pittsburgh,
to those two.
Mario Lemieux, Sidney Crosby, Roberto Clemente, I feel like it has to be a Steeler.
Franco? He's a Pennsylvania guy, went to Penn State.
No, I feel like
then he plays for Pittsburgh.
Ben Roethlisberger?
I don't know. You got the iffy personal life background.
He's a Christian now. He's fine. He's fine.
Yeah.
So Ben Roethlisberger, Mario Lemieux, Sidney Crosby, Roberto Clemente. Is that what we established?
You're gonna have some Yinzers coming after you for that.
Hey.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, guess what? 2 spots are already filled. And it's Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby.
That's the point we're getting at.
And also
fight over the other 2.
You're honestly fighting over 1 because you're going to argue against Roberto Clemente.
It's true. Yeah.
Come on.
No.
Come on. Get out of here.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. Make sure you drop a comment below. Let us know your thoughts and what your suggestions are for the next What If episode. And also, don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms as we go live after every single Pens game. So that'll do it on this one. Louie, as always,
let's go Pens.
It's Crosby. Crosby on Trinity shot. Penguins win it!
Buckle up, baby. Are you kidding me? We're a collective.